This evening, Books and Books is very happy to present Ms. Vanessa Garcia and her new book, White Light. Born in Miami to Cuban exile parents, Ms. Garcia is a multidisciplinary writer and artist whose paintings and installations have been exhibited throughout the United States and the Caribbean. As a writer, her most recent plays include The Cuban Spring, Grace, sponsored by Monteverde, and The Crocodile's Bite. This is her first novel. In it, we meet Cuban-American artist Veronica Gonzalez. Stunned by her father's sudden death, Veronica is propelled into a fever dream of productivity and grief. White Light maps a young woman's struggle to distill her sadness, rage, and love onto the canvas. Here to tell us more about it, please give a very warm welcome to Ms. Vanessa Garcia.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I will say that this is a special reading for me because I worked here when I was 18 years old. I worked here when it was the little corner store. And I always thought if I have a debut novel or when I have a debut novel, I'm going to read it here. So this is a... And I will also say that so the synopsis of that sounded like this book is kind of a downer, but it isn't actually. I mean, there's definitely an intensity to it, but I think that overall it has an optimistic tone. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this book is split up into 3 parts. There are panels in the book because they follow the painting that Veronica is making for a big installation. So I'm going to read, the longest section I'm going to read is from the first, just the introduction to the book, the first couple of pages, and then I'll read a short section from the second and third panel, and then we'll open it up. Okay, so this is the beginning, so I won't preface it with anything. Here goes. Sometimes you wake up with a hole in your heart, and you're not sure why. It's a circle carved by something you can't touch, something that opens up in your sleep and wakes you up hungry. This morning, before I got on the plane, it was like that, like those lagoons left by old erupted volcanoes. They pull things and people into them because the core of the earth, after it shoots out its molten lava, is as hungry as I am. My nerves are shot, as if the ends of them have brushed up against coca leaves and are standing on edge now, porcupine-like, pricking me under my skin. Must be why I've had on-again, off-again goosebumps since last night. I can't come back with nothing. If something big doesn't happen on this trip, I'll have to leave Tony, leave town, go back to school, teach. God, please don't make me a high school art teacher. My poor mother doesn't even know where I am. My sister either. I'm sick of bringing them down from the almosts and maybes, the nearly solo shows, the hairline fractures between me and success, that line between being a total loser and being a successful artist. I'm starting to hate that word, artist. It's embarrassing. Only Tony knows where I am. Dropped me off at the airport, and Lee, this is all Lee's doing to begin with. She said we could settle it over the phone if I really couldn't make it, but I knew what that meant. Another artist would eat smashed, stepped-on black gum off the subway platform for the chance, chew and swallow and smile. That's how Lee is. She always makes sure her subliminals are obvious. She's also totally old school, been like that from the start. There are dealers you never talk to, hardly ever see, some you never even meet. Do it all over email. But Lee's different. She likes setting up coffees and cocktails and power brunches, all of which is why I said I'd go. Come up to New York, see what she wanted. That, and she was paying for my ticket. I didn't want to risk it. Didn't want me not flying up there to be the reason why it didn't happen, whatever it was. She wasn't very clear. All she said was, if you get your painter ass up here, it's going to change your life. And my life needs some change, in every sense of the word. In my pockets, definitely. So here I am, pulling my orange backpack from my shoulders up and into the overhead bin. I got the backpack in Amsterdam a while ago. It gives me a feeling of satisfaction and loserhood at the same time. Satisfaction because it's been so many places with me. Makes me feel like I know something about the world. Loserhood because it's also the backpack that served to bring home every painting I failed to sell. A few years ago, I decided to submit work to a bunch of group shows outside Miami and New York because Miami and New York kept shafting me. And one after another, galleries in Barcelona, Amsterdam, Santo Domingo, and San Francisco chose me for their juried group shows. The elation at any kind of invitation covered up the fact that I had to hit each country on my own dime and lug back whatever I didn't sell, which was everything, which equals loserhood. I was trying to convince Tony it was an investment, a building of my CV, but I could tell what he was thinking. She's never going to make it. She's being irresponsible, not saving any money. She's too old for this. I can never marry her. And then Lee came along, and the possibility of a contract with a real New York gallery, a respected one. Lee had the potential to transform my life Oprah makeover style with the snap of her finely manicured fingers. Get me and my work in front of collectors who drop 20 grand if their interior designer tells them it goes with their rug, or the snootier collectors, the best kind, searching for someone to discover. For now, though, there's just this, a nervous curiosity about what she wants and stale airplane oxygen clinging to my lungs. Looking through my wallet, I realize I don't even have enough dough to buy a Morning Glory Bloody Mary. At least I have an aisle seat. Time to sit here and pretend to read as everyone trickles into their seats, squirming by me. The guy sitting across the aisle in the row in front of me seems even more antsy than I probably do. He's wearing an olive green jacket that keeps catching my eye with peripheral movement. The guy's really young, maybe 20, 22, bearded, black Middle Eastern, watery eyes that look like the night sky after it rains. Sparkles here and there when his dark pupils catch the glints of his reading light. If he weren't such a live wire, he'd be kind of handsome. I look down at my art in America, ignore him, try to anyway, except that his green jacket keeps wailing around and flinching. He's looking down, up and down the aisle now, up and down, rubbernecking. The kid has a massive book in his lap I can't quite catch the title of. The thing is a tome, could knock someone out flat with that brick. Jesus, I hope it's not the Quran. He gets up and goes to the bathroom at the front of the plane, sits down, then goes to the bathroom again, this time at the back of the plane. We're about to take off. The flight attendant leads him to his seat. I put away my magazine and I realize that all of a sudden I'm nervous about this guy. Maybe it's because he's wearing that jacket and I'm Cuban American and anything that resembles green fatigues does something to my psyche. Maybe it's something else, the slant of his eyes. What's he doing? He sits down again, gets back up. The flight attendant comes by and asks him to sit still, to please buckle up. We're reminded over the loudspeaker to please make sure all electronic devices are turned off. I check my phone. The kid's leg starts to shake. The guy next to me taps me on the knee, a suit, Wall Street Journal in hand. What's wrong with that guy? He asks. I have no idea, I tell him. We're trying not to stare at the kid. The suit folds his Wall Street Journal until it crumples into a pocket of news that's already old and expired, gaining obsolescence by the half second. Should I say something? I ask quietly, trying not to make a fuss. Somebody has to, I think, says the suit, which is when my heart starts to beat like an enormous, swelling red balloon inside my chest. Ba-boom, ba-boom. I'm being racist. I'm a jackass. You'd think an artist would be more enlightened. What a stupid word. I'm an educated person, right? I shouldn't think that just because this guy looks like he's from, maybe he's just... The kid gets up again, stands in the middle of the aisle, sits back down. Ba-boom, ba-boom. We have to do something, says the suit. He's growing agitated, his freckled face turning paler than it already was to begin with. Why didn't I tell my mother where I was going? I don't even think she knows Tony's number. And Tony won't know anything that's happened until he sees it all over the news. And Lee's going to think I stood her up. And Leo, who I haven't seen in forever, is going to wonder why I never got in touch to meet up after the meeting, like I'd promised over email. I should have at least told Nina I was going to New York. Maybe she'd have come along, had a sister trip with me. But no, because then she'd be here right now, in danger. And Dad, when was the last time I saw Dad? Even talked to him. I'm a shit daughter. We have a shit relationship. I'm going to tell the flight attendant something, I tell the suit. I think you should, he says. He looks down. He looks like he's about to throw up. Ba-boom, 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 all the way down the aisle. See that man over there? I tell the flight attendant, trying to keep my voice calm, the guy with the green jacket. The flight attendant looks at me like I'm annoying him, Listen, he's been acting really weird. He's freaking everybody out. He keeps getting up and sitting down, and he's, I don't know, please, just go over there and look and see. You'll see he's acting very strangely. Well, he's definitely freaking you out, miss, he says, continuing to prep the drink cart. We'll see what we can do. The flight attendant stays very cool, practically rolling his eyes at me. This must happen to him a million times a day, I get it, but what if this is the real thing? I don't know what else to do, and I don't want to make a show, so I go back to my seat. When I reach my aisle, the suit's eyes question me. I told them, I say. You don't think they'd do the same thing all over again, do you? Same tactic, that'd be stupid, right? I guess that would be stupid. They wouldn't ram another plane into... The flight attendant is standing in front of the kid with a drink cart now. The kid orders something, but I can't hear his voice. Then I see the flight attendant is reaching for a Budweiser. The kid ordered a beer, I say to the suit. That's a good sign. Yeah, that's true. They don't drink, right? He whispers. Can I see your passport, sir? The flight attendant asks the kid before handing over the beer. Good, good. They're taking precaution, says the suit. Then the flight attendant hands the kid his beer, and it's our turn to order our beverages. Suit remains vigilant. We order ginger ale. An hour goes by quicker than I realize, and half of one of those stupid romantic comedies they play has taken its course when the kid, who's been staring straight ahead for a while, starts to look back and forth again. And then, because I'm looking straight at him, he gives me a big smile. I kind of love Jennifer Aniston, he says, pointing to the screen. She's hot. Plus, I think she's a good actress. I know that sounds stupid, but it's true, man. Rachel was a great character. She's hilarious. He says all of this with a perfect American accent. The kid is American. He's talking about Friends, for God's sake. The suit next to me starts cracking up, and the kid thinks it's because he agrees with the Jennifer Aniston thing. Right? Am I right? Says the kid with frat boy intonation. I feel deflated. A complete and total fool. The kid's just nervous. Maybe he just doesn't like flying. Maybe he's got a big meeting like me. Wait till I tell Leo. What a ridiculous misunderstanding. What a ridiculous person I am. I'm laughing a little too now, nervous laughter. I like Ross, I say. He was the best character on Friends. David Schwimmer, says the kid, nodding. Yeah, he was good too. I flush pink with shame. The suit and I are embarrassed to look at each other. The suit stretches his hands in front of him, grabbing for the news again, shutting himself off to further conversation, so the kid talks to me instead. Did you watch the movie? Asks the kid. No, I've been trying to avoid them lately because I overreact. I say, fumbling through the words a little bit, trying to be cool. You know what they say about planes, that you cry more and laugh more, and I get hysterical. Especially if I drink wine, then I know it's the end. Something to do with, I can't remember totally, but something about the oxygen level or disorientation, or just plain nerves, man, he says, chortling. I punned. A statement that makes me realize the kid's in college, probably a freshman, and that the book he had on his lap earlier was probably some Russian novel he's been assigned, or a massive chemistry textbook. No, seriously, he continues, it's scary to fly now. I spaz out. And it's not like the stewardesses are hot anymore either. The one that came by earlier hasn't shaved her legs in like months. Scruffy. Girls at school are like that too. I don't get it. Feminism, I say, I guess. I smile, not sure what to follow with, so I start to stand, deciding I should pretend to go to the bathroom, even though I could have probably waited until we landed. I kick myself all the way to the bathroom, feeling dumb from my fear, sad about it even, regretting all those hours of CNN and just to get the other side of things, Fox. All those traffic jams filled with NPR streaming on the car radio, reminding us that there are still terrorist operatives living and learning inside and outside the country. Red alerts, orange alerts, yellow alerts, take off your shoes, lift your hands, x-ray search, scan, bend over, better safe than sorry, robotically looping in everyone's mind like neon ticker tape flashing headline news. By the time I get back from the bathroom, after standing in line 15 minutes, the kid is fast asleep, mouth wide open, hand folded on his lap. The suit is too. Both of them sound asleep. Suit's even snoring a little. Soon enough, we're zooming in on the city from 10,000 feet in the air. Looking down at all those street grids, I feel calmer, less heart-punching baboom. But I still feel the hole in my heart from this morning. That hasn't changed. An hour ago, I thought I was going to die, and now I'm pretty sure I'm going to live to see another day. But the hole's still there. There's no sense of real relief in that department, which is desperately unsettling. What's wrong with me? There it is, spread out before me, the free fall between me and the messy muck of being in the city again. I hate New York. Because when you're there, Inside the grid, you can't see the whole picture, just what lies in front of you. You can get lost, not like painting, where whether you're inspired to the point of bliss or you think you're losing control, the canvas is always there, whole in front of you like a map. And you're the one drawing lines of perspective. You can always find your way out. That's the power of painting. Landing in LaGuardia all alone, it's cold for September. I try not to look at the suit and the kid I took for a terrorist as I brush by everyone on my way out of the plane. I go straight, follow the signs to the exit, out the door, onto the glittery sidewalk. I forgot what this felt like, the sharp, invisible burn through your clothes going straight for the bone. I zip my jacket, wrap my scarf, and off I go into the M60, onto the M60 into Manhattan. Every once in a while, a blush rushes through me when I flash back to telling the flight attendant that he had to watch out for the kid. I can't help but feel like an idiot, like I swallowed the same pill everyone else did. Forget being independent, individualistic, all those American things that used to be strong and good, where the American and artist in me melded together. At those traits, those words. I knew I'd have to respond to the attack as an artist. I knew that right away. That would come eventually. But what I'm finding is that responding to what happened to me as a person is harder personally than professionally. Because when I think about being in New York that day, not that long ago, and I remember the immobility of it all, how time froze over like in some superhero movie where Gotham stops in its tracks, when I remember that, the virtually impossible made real, it's almost okay to be irrational about the whole thing. Regardless, I've got to stop hashing this over in my head. Put some sort of clarity in my stride. Start concentrating on my meeting now. That's why I'm here, isn't it? Not to go backwards in time, not to revisit the past, but to move toward the future. That's the first section. The second two are much shorter. The second section, so she gets a solo show during Art Basel Miami Beach. That's what ends up happening to her. And that sort of happens at the end of the first section. By the time we get to the second section, they've found her, Veronica's father, unconscious on the floor of his apartment. And this whole second section is Veronica and her family dealing with this in the hospital. And that entire middle section is numbered numerically 1, 2, 3, 4. The third section is divided by colors. So the chapters are, you'll see this if you take a look at the book. So this is 2. My father always snored. He uses a breathing machine now when he sleeps, a sleep apnea machine. He didn't have it when we were little, thank God. It would have freaked me out. He didn't know he had a problem, really, but I was always scared of the size of his snores anyway, like the squeaky pumping of an inflatable bed and the crashing of instruments in a discordant fall. Sometimes he would get stuck, and it sounded like a choke, and like all those instruments, the trumpet and the drums were now lodged in his throat. If we'd loved him more, would he have snored so much? Maybe it was some kind of call, like an animal calls, in the wild, for a mate, for love. My mother hardly slept with him when they were married. She slept with us, me and Nina, in our pink and white room. There was nothing in the world like the pleasure of sleeping with Mom, having her arms wrap around me, trying to model my breath after hers. But the truth was, Mom slept with us because she didn't love Dad the way she should have loved her husband. I knew that even then. But Nina and I loved that Mom slept with us, so we kept quiet about it. We'd fight over who got to be next to her on our full-sized bed. She didn't like being in the middle, so we took turns sleeping next to her. We slept like that almost every night, close enough to be cozy, our bodies small enough to avoid discomfort. Sometimes, though, Mom would make one of us go sleep with him, with our father. I remember the feeling of anxiety and near terror at the thought that it would be my turn to sleep with him. Nina didn't mind as much, but I hated it. Mom said it shouldn't be a chore to sleep with our dad. She used to say, pobrecito, he's sleeping all by himself. She felt sorry for him, but she didn't want to go. So she made us go instead. That's when I'd have to venture across the cold, white tile floor of the hallway and sleep beside my father, who was then, as now, clinically obese and who snored. All my friends were afraid of my father because he was so big. I could understand. Sometimes, when his breathing would seem to choke and stop completely, I thought he would die. I don't know what I would have done lying there, holding my own breath, if he had died on one of those nights. But he didn't die. He always managed to catch his breath again. And sometimes he would even sit up on the side of the bed and stay there, sitting, sleeping in that sitting position. I would watch him carefully until I thought he was fast asleep. Then I would try and sneak away. But just as I was near the door, he'd call out and ask me, gently, where I was going. I always felt bad then when he called out. It was always then that I realized that he had to be lonely and that he wished his kids would hug him more. It was always then that I thought his snores might be his way of calling us to him, when really all they did was repel us. It was then that my heart hurt for him and I felt sad. It was then that I wished I were the kind of person that said, I love you. To the bathroom, I'd say, responding to his call, I gotta pee. Sometimes I would pretend to go to the bathroom and then I'd return guilty, dejected. But sometimes I'd muster enough courage to escape to my mother, who was cuddling with Nina in our bed in our pink room with a circular, not knit area rug and the pink stereo. It was then that I felt calm. It was only then that I could sleep. Mom never made me go back after those escapes. But later, in the years he was gone from my life, while I was in high school and college, the echo of those sad eyes when he'd catch me escaping would appear. Out of the blue. They still do. Sometimes I'm looking into a painting I'm making and there they are, and I miss him suddenly. Want him to be by my side. Wish I had bought earplugs and stayed on those nights I escaped to Mom, who was always there. I wish I had hugged him and petted his hair and said, it's okay. It's okay that you snore. I'm here and I love you. I wonder if he ever felt that across our rift. Sometimes we were so far away from each other. And here we are again, in the waiting room, while Dad is in another room, number 12 ER, in a bed with a curtain separating him from an ancient old Cuban bag of a woman who sees invisible cockroaches and won't stop talking. Okay, last section. Okay, so this is from the third section. I won't be giving away anything by saying the father dies. And it's not really the climax of the book. He dies fairly early on, and then she has to figure out how to. She has this dilemma whether she's going to be able to finish the show that she's been commissioned to do. So this is when she starts painting again, and she starts taking in art again. And since each section is labeled by a color, this is ultraviolet. After a week of sewing, when I hear the Janet Cardiff installation is in town and showing at the Freedom Tower, I invite Mom to come see the show with me and Tony. Cardiff is one of the best installation artists out there, and so I figure, with Remnants and Ruins starting to come together in my mind, Remnants and Ruins is the name of the show she's making, but not gelled yet, I might as well grab some inspiration. Also, it's perfect to take Mom to a show there because the place means something to her. The Freedom Tower is now used for art shows and events, but it was once Miami's Ellis Island. Ever since I was little, Papan and Maman, Mom and my father, have been pointing to it saying, Mira, por ahí llegamos nosotros en el 62. Every time they said that, I imagined their eyes being flipped, their chests being monitored, their hair being checked for lice, processed, right along with the endless line of Cuban immigrants fleeing Castro. I hate that word, processed. Not like art, but like sausage. Or like something that's bad for you, instilled in the word immigrants, too much sugar and salt. The piece Cardiff and her partner, George Burrs Miller, are showing is an installation piece called 40-Part Motet. 40 tall standing speakers in a circle around 2 museum-style benches. The rest of the room is empty, white. And then the music starts, a classical piece. Mom and I move to the center of the room. Tony stays outside the circle. He doesn't get it, and he acts like he's afraid of crossing the line into the circle. He remains on the outskirts. I try to ignore him. The music that's playing, beginning its quiet haunt, is a 16th century choral piece by Thomas Tallis. I read about it. Cardiff had recorded an English cathedral choir, giving each of the young men in the choir an individual mic so that she could later transfer each of their voices into one of the speakers. Mom's standing in the center of the space, and I'm sitting. She's wide-hipped but tiny, shorter than the speakers, which loom over her like black flowers. In the music, sometimes several voices join, and sometimes the voices are disparate, single, and solitary. Sometimes their high pitch is a screech, and sometimes the choral blessing of divinity takes hold. Suddenly, mom starts to shake. I get scared that something's wrong, so I go to her, but I see that it's not that something is physically wrong with her. It's that she's sobbing into her hands. I slowly take her in my arms, feeling infinitely larger than her. Her face reddens with tears, and I want her to stop crying, but she doesn't want that. She wants to cry and cry, allowing herself to be moved by the gentle, rough, furtive voices around her. It's over a month since Dad died. The blazing summer days have fanned themselves and cooled. Miami and its lights make their way through the large windows of the Freedom Tower, and when the music stops, Mom stops crying, and I wonder if Dad didn't filter himself too, somehow his spirit through that music. Quietly, we step outside the circle, going toward the exit, where Tony's standing, hands in his pockets, waiting. Something about that chorus, says Mom. The voices in unison, like church and God, something about these walls, too. Do you remember? Does it look different? How was it when you guys came through, I ask her, ignoring Tony, who's just standing there and doesn't understand anything that has just happened. So much life. You have to have lived a life to understand that piece, a real life. It's okay, Mom. I'm afraid she'll start crying again, and it's not that I fear her emotion, it's that I fear her tired body might not be able to support it. It's so funny, it's so sad. I feel like I'm a farce, un imbécil, and like it's a tragedy. It's just music. I don't know why I'm like this. Mom says this to Tony. This is Mom's way of apologizing to Tony, and I want to tell her to stop. Tony doesn't deserve an apology. I wonder, at that moment, how I could be with a man who doesn't stop to look at art, doesn't allow it under his skin, let it move his insides around. Before we got to the Freedom Tower, we'd gone to the Miami Art Museum, which was sponsoring the Cardiff show, and which had shuttles to the Freedom Tower. At the museum, Mom was roaming while Tony and I walked around together. We'd seen this piece that I tried to explain to him, a complicated thing that involved a sole LeWitt. LeWitt, when he sold a piece, he sold the instructions of how to make it. So that piece there, the one you're looking at, the collector would simply buy a piece of paper that said, make a diagonal blue line that meets at the corner with the red line, etc. It's all conceptual. The buyer literally made it, so the question arises, who is the artist? See what I mean? Tony rolled his eyes and turned his back and walked away. Nina does this. She walks away. I can't stand it. Tony, that's really rude, I called out, louder than I'd have liked. He turned back to me, same look of cynicism in his Bermuda shorts and peach t-shirt. Everybody else was dressed up for the occasion, and there he was, almost 40, non-committal, in shorts and a t-shirt, a child. But then, after it's all over, all the tears and the exhibition, Tony asks Mom if she wants to go to dinner. Mom doesn't want to impose, so she says, no, it's okay, I'm not that hungry. Oh, come on, vamos, we'll eat something, says Tony, putting his hand on Mom's shoulder. Well, okay, a little something. A little something, yes, a little something good. And just like that, I remember why I'm with the little sucker, with Tony, mi amor, who doesn't get art but gets this, sharing meal, food, and conversation, touch. That's his way of loving. Tony is more real than I am. Tony is not an asshole. Tony is not artifice. Tony is not art. We go to a Cuban restaurant and Mom eats more arroz con frijoles, mariquitas, and yuca frita than I've ever seen her manage. Must have been the gaping hole the choir left, the tearing of skin and ground. It's always so hard to fill large gaping holes. Thank you, mi amor, I tell Tony, as we get up from our food to go, giving him a kiss on the cheek. You're welcome, go to that. That's all I have for you. Yeah. I guess we'll take questions if you have them. If there are any.
It always takes a little bit for the first hand to go up.
Yeah.
I know that there are questions and comments out there. Well, I'll start it off. Your Miami voice is music to my ears.
Thank you.
Someone, here we go. Okay.
So well, first of all, how long is the process of writing the book?
So I wrote this book between 2007 and 2009. I revised it in 2010. And then I took all the time in the middle to sell it.
And is it autobiographical?
It's fiction.
Okay.
It's fiction. It's totally crafted, but the impetus for it, what my father did pass away, and I did start writing this book right after. But, you know, the perfect example is my sister was reading it, and I walk into the house one day, and she's like, "Who's Leo? Who are these people?" And I'm like, "They don't exist. This is fiction." So.
Yeah, my question here was, when you started to write the book, did you already anticipate what the ending would be?
No, that ending
Okay.
was rewritten like 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you changed your mind 6 times before you
Yeah.
completed it? Got it.
Well, I changed my mind a lot more than that, but I actually went into the rewriting of that last section about that many times. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you started on a second book?
Yes. I'm writing a nonfiction book now called My Cuban Roots, but Routes. Yeah, Routes. And that's about my relationship to Cuba and a trip I took to Cuba with my mother recently, who's right there, and wearing blue, she says, in honor of the cover of the book. And then I have a novel in my brain that there are a lot of notes for.
I was wondering, you mentioned Leo. Was he in a part of the original idea, or how did you come up with him, and when did you decide to weave him in and make him the way he is?
Leo was always there. In fact, he was a more major character initially. There was a lot of the journals that he reads, and there was a lot of actually his own poetry in there, and things like that. And then I decided that it wasn't his story, so he had to find his place in the narrative. But so I used to live in Washington Heights, and the sound of him is a lot like, you know, the kids around the neighborhood. I also had this 11-year-old that knocked on my door once and asked me why I had so many books. And I gave him E. Cummings, and he disappeared and never came back. But I kind of wish that he would have come back, but he didn't. So maybe it's like my fantasy of what that kid would have done, yeah.
In terms of the writing process, is there a difference for you when you're writing a nonfiction piece as opposed to a fictional piece?
Yeah, I mean, fiction is much more liberating, and I always say, ironically, much more true, because there are things, and I said this the other day, that you can't say in nonfiction, or that people won't accept, but they'll accept it in the mouth of a character. And so you can somehow be more visceral and more true and more real and actually say the things that people actually say in fiction. And when you're working on nonfiction, it all sort of has to fit what people think that, you know, is okay. And obviously you play with that, but what is accepted and not accepted is interesting. So I mean, and then you have to stick to the facts when you're writing nonfiction, right? Yeah, to truthful.
Is the artwork yours? And if it is it the way it's described as a triptych, or is it really just one painting that you, as an author, decided to separate?
Yeah, that is mine, and it was this enormous piece that there was only one image of. So there was this question of whether to put it in the book or not, because there's this tiny little corner that's slanted because it was from this one image that I had. It was huge. It was 12 feet by 8 feet, and it was 3 wooden panels when I was stupid enough to think that that was a good idea and that it would be okay to lug that around. I lugged that around from apartment to apartment, from New York to Miami, and then one day when I was moving, somebody decided that they thought it was just pieces of wood and threw it away. That's why I have one image of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? Any questions? Mitchell?
Yes. I'm living in Miami right now.
Can you talk a little bit about the mix of Spanish and English and how you chose to mix that, and if you ever had any questions about how you either?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's impossible to write a book about Miami and Washington Heights and not have Spanish in it. But I also specifically in this book didn't want to go like the Junot Diaz route of where you don't italicize anything and it's all in one, because I feel like these characters do actually recognize a code shift. Like they actually have that. And so in their brain that happens. There is that shift, so that's italicized. So there is some thought to that, but there's no translation. There's no translation after. I mean, it's sort of contextual and you get it. But yeah, you always think of that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly.
That's how our brains work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that second generation does have the consciousness of shifting the language more than that continuous flow of what might be a first generation.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I don't need the microphone. We'll hear it on the internet.
Oh, okay. My question is what your perception of the Cuban culture was visiting Cuba, and then before, if you can kind of compare what your culture and experience of being Cuban here and then in Cuba.
Yeah. So that would take a book, the book that I'm writing. But definitely, I mean, Cuba has been a part of my imagination my entire life, and going there made it a reality, and it felt like a strange place and like absolutely my home at the same time, which might sound like a cliche, but I mean, I think probably the most interesting thing that happened to me was when it was very comfortable. I was walking down the street with my mother and we were like, oh, this is very, like, this is how we talk. This is the same, you know, but it isn't. It's complicated. But when I came back, I remember thinking, oh my God, where is everybody? There's no one out in the streets. Like there was not. And so the same feeling that I have about Miami when I am in New York or somewhere else, that I feel that sort of vitality and that vibrant kind of life about Miami. When I got here from Cuba, I was like, oh God, this is static. Everybody's in their cars. So, I mean, that doesn't really answer your question because it's a long, yeah, yeah.
Well, just to end it, my name is Mitchell Kaplan. I'm here with Books and Books, and I got here just a little bit late, but I just wanted to say something about Vanessa, that, you know, Malcolm Gladwell, have all of you heard of Malcolm Gladwell? Well, he's got this incredible book called Blink, and it's something I believe in a lot, this idea of knowing something almost immediately. And Vanessa probably mentioned to you that she had worked at Books and Books. I don't even remember how many years ago it was, but I won't embarrass her nor
Like
me
18.
by saying how many years ago it was. But it was when she was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
She was a high school kid who worked for me in the old store across the street. So it had to be at least 17 or 18 or 19 years ago. And I immediately had that sense of Blink when I met Vanessa. And I had no doubt that there would be an evening like tonight when I first met her in those days. And I just have to say, I just have to say how proud I am to have been associated with her even back then, and how proud all of us should be of having Vanessa Garcia presenting her book to us tonight. So I thank you very, very much.
And I will say that means an incredible lot from, you know, coming from you, from Mitch Kaplan, without whom there would be no literary scene in Miami, which is real. It is in the acknowledgments. Thank you. All right.
All right. So I can't follow that. A reminder to our internet audience watching at home, there's still plenty of time for you to call the number on your screen, and we'll ship White Light to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. For those of you here in the house, it's for sale at the counter in the front room over there. Vanessa's going to be signing at the table here to the left of the podium, and that was such a great reading. Please give Vanessa Garcia another hand. Thank you.